Hi, I'm Ketki.
And I'm Sanaya.
And we're Thinking People. Today we're thinking about coming of age on social media. This is part one of a two-part series exploring almost 2 decades of social media use and our evolving sense of self against the backdrop of wider technological and socio-cultural transformations. Today, we're going back to 2006 to relive what it meant to be the first generation to come of age online.
Life moves fast. Tune in to think about it.
We are doing a little personal history of social media use today. I think it's been about roughly 20 years that we've been using social media. That makes me feel very, very old.
That's me crying a little bit.
Wait, does that mean that we first started using, social media or like an older form of like, if you include like MSN Messenger, then it's been like 20
you know
years.
what? While I was thinking about this episode, I suddenly remembered that we didn't call it social media back then.
No.
We were calling it like social networking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Social networking platforms. That's what we used to call it because the whole point was to use them to stay in touch with people you already knew.
Yeah.
So it did not have, mini production house sense of the word media that it has right now.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Like even how we categorize and identify what social media platforms are has evolved and changed along with our understanding or like our use of them, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was 11 when I first started using social networking platforms.
And this was like chat, right?
Primarily. So I think my earliest memories of using my desktop to to dial up and enter the internet through broadband.
Right.
I don't even remember
You've got mail.
Correct terminology was. But yeah, my earliest memories are of Orkut, sending scraps to your friends on Orkut, sending high fives to the 5 friends you have on High Five, posting on people's walls. Okay,
wait. So we'll come to that because like Orkut is a social network, but before that you were on MSN Messenger and like the IM instant messaging services.
So
right?
I feel like, you know what? The other thing that I'm realizing is that so there was a distinction between what was a website.
Yeah.
And what was, my email and the extension of email. So I would think of Orkut and even Facebook, because I joined Facebook in 2007, just a year later. I used to think of them as websites that I would go to, and MSN Messenger as an extension of my Hotmail account. So instead of emailing my friends, I could just chat with them.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So basically what we're trying to do today is kind of map out how we've used social media over the years, over these past 20 years. And that would, if you want to talk about it, it could include services that predate social media, if that's in some sense relevant to you, how we've used it in the past, how we use it right now, and essentially like what we want our relationship to be with it in the future. And for each period of time, basically, we're trying to look at it from the perspective of like how using these different platforms has affected our sense of self and like what that feedback loop has been like, essentially.
Correct.
Okay, so let's kick this off. I think you spoke a little bit about those initial platforms that you used. Let's go back to Sanaya as an 11-year-old and let's go from you being an 11-year-old to you using like Facebook for the first time. Like what was that trajectory like? And then what was it like to use Facebook, Orkut or Facebook for the first time?
So I think another way in which we are doing this is chronologically, right?
Yeah.
In like these 10-year segments.
Yeah.
Starting with 2006 to 2016. And I was 11 years old. For me, a desktop or a computer was a device to play games on. the internet was a portal to play more games on. And, games like Club Penguin, MyScene.com. I used to go to Cartoon Network India.com and play like a Scooby-Doo game on it. And then social networks were another platform where I could sort of play a game. That's I think how I thought of it. And I think even for Facebook, my earliest memory of using Facebook was having a Neopet and making graffiti on my friends' walls.
Oh, interesting.
That's what Facebook was. I did not use it to keep in touch with anyone. No one I knew was on Facebook. There were like 4 other people I knew who were on Facebook. This is what
year?
2007.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. And I got to know about Facebook because, I had older cousins who were studying abroad.
Right.
And there was a time when Facebook was invite only.
Yeah.
Right. So I found out about it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Let's make an account. No age restrictions. One thing I do remember, and I may be misremembering this, we'll have to fact check this. When I was creating the account, I was 11, and I think the youngest you could be was 13. And I said I was 13 because what difference does it make?
Yeah, like who's checking?
Yeah, so that was Facebook, and at Facebook felt like because there were fewer people on Facebook, I was way more active on Orkut because almost everybody I knew was on Orkut. And I think whatever the Orkut scrap was is what the Facebook wall post sort of turned into or became later on.
Right.
And on Orkut, I think when I first started using it, I feel like, like with anything that has network effects, people who are on it. And then to be a part of that network, you join that network. You don't want to be excluded from it. Although as an 11-year-old, was not thinking about it in this way at all. And I was just thinking, I'm like, you know what? This was a very unself-conscious phase of life.
Yeah.
Unself-conscious time in the world.
Yeah.
Right? This whole performativeness that we all live with today was definitely not there.
Yeah.
But I do remember, being very particular about what is my Orkut profile photo. And I did not want it to be a picture of myself.
Yeah.
Thank God I was a child.
Yeah.
But I had found a photo on Google Images that it was like a notebook on which somebody had doodled I heart me and colored in the heart. And it was a picture of that. Someone else had made it. It was just on Google Images. I had made that my Orkut profile photo. And I thought I was so cool because it wasn't a picture of myself. It was representative of some other part of my personality. So I found that interesting because already, even at that young age, you're thinking about, what's this photo I'm going to use?
You were loving yourself before it was cool to love yourself.
I stopped loving myself almost immediately after.
Oh, God.
And I don't know. It took a while to to want to doodle that into a notebook again.
Yeah.
But that was one thing. And MSN Messenger, I think, was huge because that's what my immediate friend group would use.
Yeah.
Right. And even over there, what's my profile photo? What font is your font?
Yeah.
Right. That was a thing on MSN Messenger. And I remember I used to like this font called Snap. It was something Snap. And it used to be like this fuchsia, but not hot pink color that I liked, like a fuchsia magenta color. And that was my font that I would use while chatting with people.
Oh, okay. I fully forgot about this font thing.
Yeah. It was, you could choose, you could change it. And you could switch on, what are you listening to on MSN Messenger. And I remember that was in 2008. So I've moved forward a year.
Yeah.
But that was when Love Story had come out. And half the people I knew, their statuses on MSN Messenger were Baby Just Say Yes. That's my earliest memory of Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
As a 13-year-old. So I feel like there was already a sense of wanting to present yourself in a certain way.
That was the most exciting thing. Even for me, okay, so I never used Orkut. And I think I got my first email, my first email was a Hotmail ID, which was in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really remember what I used it for at all, actually. But I think the thing that I do remember is very shortly after I made a Gmail ID, and we used to chat on Gmail chat. Do you remember this?
Gtalk.
Gtalk.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for a long time, I think like for most of 2006, well into early 2007, I was using Gtalk, and then pivoted to MSN Messenger. And like a lot of these, like you would basically, like for me, I would adopt all of these new platforms because like someone at school was like, I'm now using this. Or like, you had a bunch of people at school who would talk about it. And I'd be like, okay, I guess I'll just get on it.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't very, tech savvy myself, or like really finding out that like, hey, this is this new thing that's come on or whatever. And basically it was just be the new trendy thing at school, and then I would just get that. And so the next thing I got was like MSN Messenger, and I remember...
Yeah, you can't change fonts on Gtalk.
Exactly. You can't change fonts on Gtalk. I also remember it being like a very, very small window for the chat, so it would never expand into like a larger window.
You couldn't have like
long
group chats.
Yeah.
I was going to call them a conference chat.
Oh yeah.
But like whatever, we could not have group chats
Exactly. And on MSN Messenger, you could put like your status update. And I remember using MSN Messenger and being very like, proper with my status update, which is that like, oh, if I'm away, I must set it to away. Or if I'm online, I must set it to online. And people who were online at the same time would get a notification that you're online.
Yeah.
And I remember it was...
Oh my God. So many heart flutter moments around that.
I know. I'm like thinking about it. I'm like gooey inside, feeling so nostalgic. But when someone would come online, or you would go online and someone would get a notification, almost instinctively, almost instantly, you would get a message from someone else who was online.
Yeah.
And they would... And the whole idea was, I have come online to chat with someone.
Yeah.
That is the purpose with which you would go on to MSN Messenger. Yeah. So there was never a situation where you would log on to MSN Messenger, and unless no one was online, but if someone was online, you would almost always be talking to them.
Yeah. And I don't know if you knew people who did this, but there would be people who would log in and appear offline.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure people have done this.
There would be someone in your friend group who was a lurker. This is early stage lurking, okay? They're lurking. They don't want anyone to know they're online. They just want to be there. They want to talk to just one specific person, right? That person who can know that they're actually online, but nobody else, so they don't get dragged into a group chat. Oh my God. The funny thing about this was that you would spend all day in school with your friends, and then you'd go home and then you'd chat with them.
Yeah.
I think that back then, social networking was like this parallel universe for you to interact with your friends. And there was like an unreal quality to it almost, because it's like, okay, this happened in a chat. I don't know how we were making sense of like what's virtual, what's real, what's happening in front of us back then.
Yeah, I don't think we had the language to make sense of it.
Yeah,
I
not
think
at all.
we were the you and I both are 29 now, and we were sort of amongst the very first crop of teenagers in the world.
We spent our entire adolescence on the internet and on social networking / social media platforms, and we were the first generation
to come of age on it.
Yeah, and no one was talking about mental health.
Yeah.
Like no one had that vocabulary. And nowadays, like when I see like 11 and 12-year-olds like really, really know all the therapy speak words there are, it's very unnerving.
Yeah.
Because as kids, I genuinely felt like this is just another game and a cool feature. And, I think for me, because I went to an all-girls school, there was interactions with boys used to be so loaded.
Yeah.
The only place before in a non-social networked world to meet boys was to either look at them across the fence or to be in the same after school classes as them. But now with MSN Messenger, you can chat with them.
You can form MSN Messenger relationships.
Yeah.
Have you been in one? I have been in one.
You've been in one?
I've been in a exclusively MSN Messenger relationship with someone who went to my school. And we would not really talk to each other on school, but we would talk to each other all the time after school on MSN Messenger. And he was like, I like you. And I said, I
Why
like
would you not talk in school?
We were too shy, I think. And this was like
yeah,
the early
exactly.
days. So we were too shy. And this was like, eventually we did get to talking to each other. But I remember it was like very short lived in that it was like maybe 2 weeks long. And then we broke up. So
How did you break up? Over text?
over MSN Messenger. Like that was where our relationship lived, basically.
Did anyone know about it?
I'm sure they did. I'm sure like some of my older friends back then know
Oh,
about
wow.
this. But yeah.
I mean, like for a young person, it gave you a sort of private space
Yeah.
to explore some of these things.
Yeah. And especially when you're just trying to figure out like who you are socially.
Yeah.
And I grew up with like very strict parents. So they were not like, oh yeah, just go to someone's house after school. Unless if we don't know them, then
Yeah.
we have to know them, we must vet them, and only then you can go to their house.
Yeah.
So there was like not a lot of opportunity to like socialize outside of school. So it was like a very natural extension of that. And that's what made it exciting.
That made it, that was the whole excitement of it all.
100%.
And not just that, I feel like you could also be chatting well into the night.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
There was no time limit. Even like I think talking on the phone was a bit much, but even let's say you were able to speak to either a friend or some boy you liked on the phone, there's a phone bill that comes at the end of it. And I have witnessed and been responsible for many like ludicrous phone bills while growing up. But if you're just chatting with someone over MSN,
no limits.
Sky's your limit.
Sky's your limit. You can have, you can be in the throes of romance for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it can end and crash and burn.
I didn't enter an MSN Messenger relationship, but like I feel like I was involved in a lot of matchmaking MSN Messenger conspiracies and ruses where I would be like, oh, I think you would like my friend and I will help you woo her.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of situations.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, we'll just start a group chat.
Yeah.
Or I don't think that's what we used to call them. I don't think they were group chats, but whatever. When there are more than two people and you're having a combined conversation.
Yeah.
And I also think that MSN Messenger was like the backdrop for some amount of like conflict and relational aggression as well.
Yeah.
Like there would be drama.
That would happen. That would unfold on MSN Messenger.
And fights.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I guess that makes it like a precursor, right? Like it's a social network in a sense. It's not a, could you consider it
a messaging platform?
It's an instant messaging platform, but it's
which all social media platforms now have.
Yes.
Right.
But I think it allowed you to be social in real time. That was the first, at least my first experience of being able to be social in real time. Like GChat and then MSN Messenger. And then comes Facebook.
Yeah, I do think that Facebook changed when it got Facebook Messenger or Facebook Chat.
Yeah. So okay, yeah, exactly. So that's a good point. Like I joined Facebook in 2008. And I remember using Facebook parallelly with MSN Messenger because Facebook didn't have chat.
Yeah.
And it was a really weird concept to me at the time. Like I think a lot of my friends were already on Facebook, but I, for some reason, resisted it. I think I'm always late to adopt new tech things generally. Like that's just who I've been.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was that way even as a teenager where I was just like, but what do you mean you go online and become someone's friend?
Yeah.
And then I got it because I had gone to one of my friend's house after school. Like she was my neighbor and she showed me what Facebook was about and how people were like writing on her wall. And I was like, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I remember coming home and making a Facebook account and adding all of my friends. And like there was this like thrill of just, like you said, it's like this second space, right? But now it's like elevated. It's taken a step higher and it's this new thing. And so before this episode, like I went on my Facebook and I like went back to like 2008 because like on your Facebook wall now, you can filter your Facebook wall by year.
Oh,
It's almost
really?
as if like Facebook right now knows that people will access it to like, go back in history. And that thing that you said earlier, where in this period, like for
Yeah.
us, like 2006 to at least 2013, I would say, or well, let's say 2010, there was this like lack of self-awareness in a sense
Yeah.
about what you're doing. Like you are, in a sense, yes, you're projecting your likes and dislikes. You are trying to showcase who you are to
Yeah.
your friend circle, but there's an innocence about it.
Yeah.
It's not curated, in air
100%.
quotes. It's not curated at all.
They were actual photo dumps.
Yeah.
Like genuine photo dumps.
Gen Z?
Not what you see on Instagram
No,
now.
100%.
They were actually, these are all the photos on my digital camera.
Yeah.
As much as my little SD card could handle.
Yeah.
Here are all of them
Yeah.
in an album that I am going to call today's date, whatever
Exact.
that date was.
Dude, you would go for one birthday party and post 200 photos in an album.
And going through those photos was such a joy.
Yeah. It was such a joy.
Yeah.
People would go through them individually and then comment on them and like them, and then it was something else altogether.
Friends, we would all meet up and be like, oh, those photos are up.
Yeah.
So let's go see the photos. And it would be an activity.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness. Yeah.
So in a sense, like what Facebook did was it made your the people that you would be interacting with online socially just a little bit bigger. Like it wasn't the whole world yet.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just your absolute close-knit circle of friends on MSN Messenger, but it was like maybe most of the people in your class, people from some other class, some other grade. So like you were like, at least in my case, like I was expanding into like my school network. Like
Mhm.
everyone that I kind of knew at school, and sometimes people that I didn't even really know at school would add me and we would become friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
So you're like, sorry, you are on your laptop right now and going through your Facebook.
I'm so sorry, but on November 30th, 2008, I have posted saw Twilight. Disappointing.
Oh
That's
God.
my status.
Is that really what you felt about Twilight? That is
Okay,
sad.
this is what I felt. I downloaded the torrent from ISO Hunt, but it's bad quality. But I understood everything. If you've read the book, you won't like it. Bella's acting sucked.
Oh my God.
That is what I said.
Wow.
I'm so sorry. We'll go back to what Facebook was turning into.
No, but so I mean, it's like it was that. It was definitely like I was going to come to that also, which is that like it became this thing where you're projecting your likes and dislikes
Yeah.
and your opinions to people who you know.
Yeah.
Like you know them somehow. They are like,
Mm.
it's not just complete random people.
Yeah.
And you're not exposed to the world through your Facebook at all.
And there's this interesting thing which I feel like Facebook wall posts and statuses kind of introduced, which is like a public rendering of private conversations.
Yeah.
Where in the most unself-conscious manner, but also slightly like there's this like creeping self-consciousness, you will have a conversation with a friend
Mm.
in this public space, not caring that other people can see it, but knowing that they can,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like that was a completely new kind of social interaction. I mean, it's funny. Are we doing that right now? Are we having a public private conversation? Did the
Okay, let's
Facebook
not
wall
get meta
post,
about it.
Facebook wall conversation, is it a precursor for conversational podcasts? Like, I don't know. Like, that has always, the psychology behind a Facebook wall post has always been interesting.
Yeah.
Because how can it be for a wider audience when you're saying something so specific?
Yeah.
But it is, and it's open for comments,
Yeah.
and everyone can join in.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's an interesting like precursor to things that come
Yeah.
in the
And-
following years.
Yeah, I guess there is something to be said about how we want to be perceived. I wouldn't say that like we weren't entirely self-conscious about it. I do think that as you go through the years and you will find this, like I felt I was seeing this, like I went from like looking at my wall when I was in 2008 to 2009, and 2010 suddenly I'm posting like deep quotes and song lyrics and things like that, where I'm like,
yeah, trying to be edgelords.
Exactly, where I'm just like, actually I'm better than all of you and I listen to all this cool music.
Yeah, I think Twilight's disappointing.
You were doing it way earlier than any of us.
But I also am the person who downloaded the torrent from ISO Hunt.
But I remember it as being fun.
Yes.
That's what it is. Like at least for the first 2 years from like 2008, 2009, 2010, it was really, really just fun. My friends and I would watch like new episodes of Gossip Girl, and my wall, if you go to it, like it is just full of like commentary on what Chuck and Blair did in this episode, and then I'm responding to it, and my other friend is responding to it, and it was like, we are very much like excited about things that we like, and we talk to each other about them excitedly, and it's a place to discuss what happened at school.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. I also remember like people changing their surnames to like...
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
So I had a friend, I'm not going to take his name. He's one of my closest friends still, but his middle name was Bolt because he loved Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
And another friend of mine, her surname, she changed it to Cullen because she loved Edward Cullen.
I excuse my essentializing and stereotyping way back when I was 15 in 2010, but I decided for the 2010 World Cup that I wanted to support like, an unlikely underdog team to win. And I just decided, like I threw a random dart and I decided that team is Mexico.
Wow.
So I changed my name to Sanaya Sanchez. This is the thing I did. Because I wanted them to win.
Oh my God.
So I'm like...
Is this some form of cultural appropriation? I don't think so.
No, I mean, it is definitely stereotyping. Definitely.
That's so funny.
But yeah, just not self-conscious. And again, like I feel like that like awareness of political correctness, etc. None of that was there. It was just this unfiltered like expression of people's thoughts, whatever their id is deciding to throw out into the world. It's just it's out there, and it was fun. I do remember enjoying myself thoroughly. I think the 2010 Football World Cup, I think, was some of the most fun I've had on Facebook, because after every match I would just like, my status would be something like dramatic about like what just happened. And there was this, so Facebook Notes. Do you remember Facebook Notes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Facebook Notes. Just extending this idea of like, the people you interact with. It's kind of like this, like your school lunch break, like a virtual version of that, essentially, where everyone is also on this platform, and it's just for social interactions. So on Facebook Notes would write, I wrote this series which I called A Parody of Our Lives, where I wrote about like all the dramatic situations happening in my friend group and adjacent social circles, but I wrote it as like a fictional retelling of our lives, and every character had like, a reference back to the person they were in real life.
Yeah.
So if like there were these two people who in real life kind of had a crush on each other but refused to admit it, but everybody knew about it, in the story I wrote that in.
Wow.
And the thing is, the people whom this was about would read it and say, Sanaya, write more. Which I don't even know what that is. Who can analyze this?
It's yeah. I think it's like the first online space where we are reflecting on our own lives and trying to project them in a certain way. We're trying to project our relationships in a certain way. There was that whole feature that was introduced on Facebook, like so-and-so is in a relationship with so-and-so.
And it's complicated.
It's complicated. All of like, there were I think so I think there's a lot of features on Facebook that were introduced slowly over the time that we used it that now people would not even think twice about. But I think like I saw some of my old statuses where I was just like, Ketki is hating the new Facebook update or whatever, like, so we were like responding and reacting to these updates and the website changing in real time.
Yeah.
And like, I remember, do you remember pokes? Like,
Yeah,
what was that?
Yeah, and it was like only weird people poke you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that was the way in which, at least as kids, we thought about it. Like, who pokes a person?
Who pokes a person?
But why is that a feature?
There was this time where we would like a lot of groups, like which had like weird different names.
Yeah.
To indicate like what you find interesting. And sometimes those group names were just not like a category. Like it's not like a band name or something like that. It's a full joke.
Yeah.
The group name is an actual joke and someone has just liked that. And then you get a notification and you see that someone's liked this. So it's that early days of basically showing your close network what it is that you're interested in.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I think that I'm just skipping ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Two things in this one decade that is coming to mind. First is that I do think that Facebook wall posts are a precursor to tweets and that kind of microblogging.
Yeah.
Right? Because and I think like Twitter really took that one like kernel of this idea and distilled it into its most potent form.
Yeah.
Which is take the Facebook status, take the Facebook wall post, it's just text. You have a thought, you want to comment on things that are happening around you, you want to respond in real time to things. This is your platform for just that.
Yeah.
You want to project to the world what you think about such and such thing. Here's Twitter. This is your opportunity to be an edgelord times 5,000.
Yeah.
Take it. That is one thing. And I think the other thing, which I don't know how much of a worldwide phenomenon this was, but cut to 2013, I do think that Facebook and all these, because they are the site for extended social interactions, they also become the site for like the kind of bullying and relational aggression that you will see in any school setting. And I feel like that kind of reached some weird manifestation with confessions pages.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think everyone who was in our age group in 2013, which is when I was in a confessions group, everyone there were like 3 or 4 weeks in that period of time where everyone had some or the other experience with the confessions page.
Yeah.
I was in APS Pune Confessions. That's Army Public School Pune Confessions.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
It was nuts and so addictive. It's like, I don't know.
Did you have like, I heard like stories about like schools shutting down confession pages because they like some teacher found out about it and then they would be like, they'd call in the students and just be like, who started this? Like, did this happen at your school? Because it definitely happened at ours,
No, it did not happen at our school. I think no one complained. No one found out.
Right.
This happened when I was in 12th standard and it happened during the board exams. And it happened specifically in the 2-week study leave period right before the CBSE maths exam.
Yeah.
And maths, because I was a humanities student, maths is the toughest exam for us.
Yeah.
So everyone was losing their mind, like, oh my God, what's it going to be? It's going to be hard, blah, 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 blah. And then here comes this confessions page and we could not stop using it.
Oh my God.
Every day. I think that was the first time I have like obsessively visited Facebook.
Yeah.
Like just uncontrollable urge to see what's new.
Who's saying what?
Yeah, and obsessive in the sense that it's starting to feel like a problem. Like it's stopping you from living your life. So that thing that we said, it's fun. Like it is still fun.
Yeah.
But you're starting to feel like maybe like whatever is happening in front of our eyes is like it wouldn't be possible. We wouldn't be like saying like these kinds of nasty things about each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, confessions page, I should have probably said this sooner, is a Facebook group, usually for a school, a college, a well-defined group of individuals or an institution where people anonymously submit confessions to an admin or a moderator, and that person just publishes them for everybody to see what it is. And the thrill is to see what people really think about
Yeah.
something. Maybe you will be mentioned at some point. That's nice. And yeah, you get to read all the drama.
Yeah.
You get to stir some shit up as well. So
Yeah.
it essentially was just a way for kids to talk about each other.
So yeah, and so basically, like, till this point, this is in my head, like, it's still at least 2013, right? Like 2013, 2014, and I do think confessions pages kind of like die out till after that.
Yeah.
And in my memory, like, up till that point, Facebook, like, social media for the most part is fun, a
Yeah.
place to interact with your friend,
Yeah.
and it's public but personal,
Mhm.
right? And then I think something shifts in like 2014, 2015, where I think that, you know, that aspect of like projecting your likes and dislikes on Facebook, it also becomes political. Like, then it slowly, you're sort of, you start moving in the direction of like projecting what you feel politically. And maybe it's just us growing up. Like,
Yeah.
that's also one aspect of it. Like, now we start to have like political opinions.
Yeah.
Like,
Now
at
we're
least
in college.
you're in college,
So you
right?
need to have them.
You need to have political
Yeah.
opinions, and then you're sort of like, you meet a new crop of people who and like you and I both have like studied liberal arts, who then are very, very political online and on Facebook, and maybe you feel compelled to do that. But I think
I didn't study liberal arts.
Oh, you did. Sorry, you
I
studied
economics.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. It's a social science.
It's
but
a
anyway,
social
go on.
science, right?
Yeah.
And I also think that there is a like very natural way or in which I'm moving towards this. Like, I also think that a big reason why I chose to study liberal arts is also like Tumblr. And I think about this because I was using Tumblr from 2008 to 2012 religiously.
Ooh.
And Tumblr to me is the first platform where people are political in authentic ways, where they talk about their genuine interests. And people used to post like long blog posts about like things happening in the world and what they were interested in. It was like, it's for me, it started off with just like a place where I could like access like cool photographs and you know, fashion and all of those type of things and stuff.
Yeah.
But then it also became a place where people shared like very genuine opinions about things in the world. Like, I think a huge part of like feminist values, like, I imbibed from Tumblr.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I
That's a big
will
one.
give that platform that. And I really think it was that community that you had, and that's how I had like, I never actively blogged on Tumblr in that, like, I never created or wrote anything myself till much later, but I was reading a lot of things coming my way. And I think that shaped me in some way, and it like very naturally led me to this next phase where Facebook is now like, okay, in 2013, Instagram is also
Did you have an Instagram? When did you get your Instagram?
2013, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think Instagram came out maybe a year before that or something, but I got Instagram fairly early.
Yeah.
But
I think it was around by like 2010, 11. So
right,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I get Instagram in 2013, but obviously it's just a place as of right now to share photographs. That's it. 1:1 square photographs. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
So Facebook becomes this place where you can share your thoughts about political happenings around the world. And that's how I then start to use it. It like, you can see it on my wall that I just completely it shifts from me talking shit with my friends to me being like, but actually this is what I think about Obama's policy on blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, how old am I? I'm like 19 years old and trying really hard. So yeah.
You know, for me, I think 2013, something happens. I feel like I obviously start college. And I think because I was studying economics, like a lot of the introduction to any kind of like political thought, ideas, it also happens through college itself, right? Like college is the place where you get introduced to a lot of these ideas. And specifically something like economics, and in your case, like, you know, a
History.
humanities subject.
Yeah.
I feel like that makes you engage with this
Yeah.
kind of stuff a lot. And then as a result, you're kind of expressing yourself in those ways online as well. But what also happens to me around this time is that I feel I think that I went through like blips in whatever self-esteem and general mental health, again, all before there was a language to describe any of this. And I don't think I attributed any of it to social media. I don't even think it was directly because of it. Maybe it was a contributing factor, but I remember just going off all social media for 3 years.
Okay.
So between 2013 and 2016, I never joined Instagram. I joined Instagram in 2016. And I essentially left Facebook, right? So I think I had already begun to feel a little obsessiveness in the way in which I would come back home and just like my fingers without like very unconsciously would go www.f,
Yeah.
facebook.com. Like it would just happen. And I would spend an insane amount of time just on my Facebook newsfeed. And again, I don't remember if at this point in time there was like an infinite scroll quality to it. But I remember just being like, this is taking up too much time. I'm
Yeah.
not doing anything else. And then I just went off Facebook. And I'm sure at that point, like, you know, seeing other people's lives, what they were doing, or maybe like, you know, the way in which they were expressing themselves, maybe that had an impact. But I felt a need to leave. So, I mean, I feel like I was already feeling a little fried.
It starts to get too much. And okay, the reason why I brought up the political aspect or like Facebook becoming a political place is because it's after 2013 where maybe you had a little bit before also, but like it's now when we are coming of age, we are entering college, and along with having political opinions about like world affairs, you are now privy to conversations about social, like online bullying. Like I think it starts then. Like those type of conversations start happening, albeit not to the same degree.
Yeah.
But they start. And so there is like that the first layer of criticism of social media and its impact on us, right?
Yeah, I'm already starting to feel like it's stopped being a little fun.
Yeah.
I can already feel it in this conversation that, okay, like, you know, fun time's over.
It is.
Yeah.
It is over. And so, so that, like, describe to me, so now you are no longer on Facebook from 2013 to 2016.
I'm not. Yeah.
What social media platforms then do you join?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I did join Twitter in 2011, and I think that was the first time. The way in which I was introduced to Twitter was that anything that happens in this world happens first on Twitter, and then it happens in the news, and then you hear about it. So that was the first time I heard about social networking platforms kind of turning into these media sources, right? Like where even like the BBC wants to have like a Twitter handle where they can post live updates and not have to like draft an article. So I was on Twitter, but I wasn't active. I joined Pinterest in 2013. Pinterest, by the way, the one app I have never deleted from my phone.
The best.
I have never felt the need to leave.
Yeah.
What Tumblr was for you in terms of like this like curation of aesthetics and like developing your own personal style, like 100% like Pinterest has been that for me. I love how non-obtrusive it is in my life. And I also love that it's there. I can see things that I've pinned from like more than 10 years ago. So I was using Pinterest. Again, it's a little different because I don't use it to like chat with people.
Yeah.
Right.
Not necessarily social in a sense.
Yeah,
it can be, but
I do think that, like, you know, seeing other people's boards, being able to follow other people, there are elements of that. So I was on Pinterest. I don't know where YouTube fits into all of this, right? Because I think YouTube maybe it's not as much social networking, but it informs how everything else turned into a media platform and how people became creators. So I feel like the idea of a creator creating video content, that's a YouTube thing.
That starts with YouTube, right? Like, I think already by 2016, actually way before 2016, you have like full-fledged YouTube content creators, you know, who are getting paid by YouTube. Correct. And that's their entire career, right?
Yeah.
YouTube has started, like, it basically, it kickstarted the content creator that exists today, but basically being able to monetize yourself through your content, that started
through
with
your
YouTube.
Creative content. I used to watch so many vloggers. Like, I used to obsessively watch Charlie is so cool like videos.
Yeah.
Then there are some.
PewDiePie.
I never watched that, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Huge thing.
But there was, I think even there were a few YouTube videos which were things that went viral. Like, is it Charlie Goes to Candy Mountain? That unicorn?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Everyone had just watched it.
Yeah.
And, you know, like those, like, I feel like you start seeing like small, like, online production company profiles, like, you know, College Humor, Honest Trailers, whose whole thing is that we make videos for YouTube, which people really like to watch. I feel like, so YouTube and Pinterest are these two platforms that I've just consistently been using.
Yeah.
YouTube since the late 2000s was, a place where I can watch music videos. Are you kidding me? Yeah, you know, so definitely YouTube and definitely Pinterest. But I feel like I also consider those, I have jokingly referred to those 3 years when I was not on social media as like my dark ages. Because I felt like, you know, I kind of put a stopper on like that kind of expression and exploration of who I was, you know, through likes and dislikes or whatever. And I wasn't exactly doing it in like this amazing way offline.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show that there is some sense of self that social media, I believed, could help me arrive at, right? Like, you know, it could help me think of who I was, what I liked. And, you know, the lack of those outlets made me feel like, oh, you know what, I didn't really explore who I was enough for those 3 years. So I did feel that way.
That's interesting. Yeah. And like, because there was so much, in a sense, that was also happening. It's a sense of FOMO, right? Like, which is just basically like everything that's trendy, or like what's the hot new meme or what's trending, like that's what's happening. And
like I remember there was this, you know, Miley Cyrus covers Why Do You Only Call Me When You're High. And I remember there was this one time I was with some like friends. This was, I think, first or second year of college, and like everyone knew about the song, and everybody knew that Miley covered it. And I feel like I hadn't kept up with Miley's transformation into her bangers era. And I remember just being like, oh my God, I don't know this. I don't know what's going on. And I remember that definitely affected me a lot. So I'm like, how do I keep up?
You had FOMO.
I didn't know what that was. You just feel like shit.
Did you know what the Harlem Shake was?
Yeah, I knew what the Harlem Shake was.
Yeah, that was massive.
Ice Bucket Challenge and Harlem Shake. I did know those. I did know both of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
let's pause.
Let's pause.
That brings us to the end of 2016. First 10 years of social media.
Thanks so much for listening. Thinking People podcast is hosted by Sanaya Chandar and Ketki Sharma. Our producer for this episode is Saurav Das.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your audio content. Be sure to follow us at Thinking People Pod on Twitter or X, and at Thinking People Pod on Instagram. If you'd like to get in touch, write to us at thinkingpeoplepodcast@gmail.com.
Stay tuned for our next episode. Bye.